Welcome back, On Guard Army. Today we are going to be going over, by popular demand, a Greninja Froslass build. And honestly, I've refined this a bit, and I do really like where it's at right now. So, the main focus of this, as we have covered in an earlier video, is the Greninja EX. This has an attack for 1 water energy that does 170 and lets you search your deck for any card and add it to your hand, which is an incredible consistency attack, and you can do it super easily with just a singular attachment. I think that this attack is insane consistency. The problem is just that this deck doesn't have a lot of damage output right now, which is where the Froslasses come in. But before we go over the Froslasses, let's talk about Mirage Barrage. This, for 1 water and 2 colorless, is discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 120 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. In this case, most of the time you are going to be swinging for 100, because that 2 colorless energy cost is going to be paid by double turbo energy instead of by regular basic energies, which gives you a -20. We have 1 Frogadier to evolve up into. It has the Numbing Water attack, which can paralyze our opponent in a pinch. And then we have 4 of the 70 HP Froakies, just so they can't be spread to by Dragapult and knocked out. And then we have the Froslasses. This is where we're able to make up for some of our lackluster damage, because due to Freezing Shroud, which stacks for each of them in play, we can spread damage to all of our opponent's Pokemon with abilities, which also, over the course of multiple turns, can net us some extra prizes. For example, if our opponent has a Manaphy on the bench, and we have 2 Froslasses down, we pass the turn, it takes 20 damage, they pass it back to us, we can swing into something else, and then by the next turn they've taken another 20 damage, and the Manaphy is knocked out. And if the Manaphy gets knocked out, then we can suddenly start taking the 2 prize snipe knockouts by removing Manaphy with Freezing Shroud into a Mirage Barrage to knock out someone's engine. So we are playing a 3-3 line of Froslass and Snorunt, but this is also good for just setting math up around the board to either put things on 2 prizers in order to make it within range of a Mirage Barrage, or make something in range of the first attack, the Shinobi Blade. Just putting things in range with Freezing Shroud is super nice. But just anywhere on the board, any of the damage anywhere on the board, we are able to actually modify and move around using Radiant Alakazam. So as damage builds up around the board, we can move it on to what we actually want to be damaging more with Radiant Alakazam, and be taking some extra prizes in that way, and reaching certain numbers a little bit easier. We have 3 of the Snowrunts. It has the attack Astonish, which does 20 damage, and choose a random card from your opponent's hand, and then shuffle it into their deck. We're almost never going to be using this. That's like attach, Astonish for 20. It's not that great. And I do wish that this thing had a little bit more health, because this being at 60 HP makes our Dragapult matchup a little bit rough, but in all honesty, we can just kind of take the L to Dragapult and do well into a lot of other decks. I will say that this build is not particularly favored into Raging Bolt Ogerpon, but honestly, I don't think that the Lugia matchup is bad at all, because Freezing Shroud spreading to the Archeops allows us to Mirage Barrage the Archeops, and then remove both of them from play, and then suddenly they can't accelerate energy anymore. Meaning that in the late game we can clean up any of the attackers that have energy on it with Bloodmoon Ursaluna. Speaking of Bloodmoon Ursaluna, this is a new EX Pokemon that just came out in Twilight Masquerade. It has the ability Season Skill, which, as your opponent takes more prizes, your attack costs less and less energy, similarly to Radiant Charizard, except all of the cost is colorless, meaning that as the game goes on, this costs colorless and colorless less, meaning if your opponent is at 1 prize, this attacks for 240 for free, and also has a massive 260 HP Pokemon on a basic. This is an absolutely insane mon to have in the deck. Now, if we can get a 1 prize board state when our opponent is down to 1 prize remaining, we can also utilize Mawile Tempting Trap, making on our next turn the next Pokemon we swing with do 90 more damage because they can't retreat. If we're at a 1 prize board state, they have to take a 1 prize knockout, and then suddenly we can bench Bloodmoon Ursaluna, attack for free for 330 because of the 90 more damage. This is also great for being able to stall something in the active that our opponent isn't able to retreat with if they might be out of switches or out of ways to get out of the active, we can Tempting Trap something while Froslass is spreading damage around the board. And we can move it to whatever target we want with Radiant Alakazam. If our opponent's active happens to have an ability, we can be moving those Freezing Shroud damage off of the actives so we can keep them in the active with Tempting Trap while knocking out things on their bench. Then we have Cleffa for consistency. On the first turn of the game, normally we are going to want to potentially get into this Cleffa. I would definitely consider a rescue board. That's one thing that I might add to this list, because if we can Arven for rescue board and Buddy Poffin for a Froakie and a Cleffa, and then rescue board into Cleffa to draw a bunch of cards, I think that's pretty good. We could cut like an Earthen Vessel maybe. In all honesty, the list is kind of tight, so I'm not 100% sure what. We could cut an Irida maybe cut an Arven if we think that this is enough, because we've got a lot of item search with Arven and Irida combined in this deck. So theoretically, we could cut something for a rescue board. For right now, I don't have it, but it could be good to add. And then we have the Rotom V, which is our Seal Stone target. This has the ability Instant Charge, which allows us to draw 3 cards and then end our turn. We can also use Seal on it to search our deck for any card at either a later turn or the turn at the very beginning of the game that we use this. So we could theoretically go Arven for Nest Ball and Seal Stone, Nest Ball for Rotom, Seal Stone to Rotom, use it for Buddy Poffin to get ourselves set up, and then draw 3 cards to end our turn. So Rotom is an absolutely great addition here. Then we have 4 Arven for the most consistent starts, because Arven gets us our Buddy Poffin and a Seal Stone to be able to get set up. Irida gets us a Water Pokemon and a Trainer card, meaning that we could grab a Snorunt and a Buddy Poffin, and then Buddy Poffin for double Froakie. That's a potential option. In all honesty, I could definitely see cutting a Technical Machine Devolution. There's not a lot of discard in this deck aside from Earthen Vessel and Ultra Ball, so we can probably get away with 1 Technical Machine Devolution here. I think I'll actually make that change right now. Look at us, we're developing the list on the fly. Yeah, I think this is better because we can rescue board into the Cleffa. Then we have 3 Iono. This is disruptive draw while also drawing us cards and preserving our resources. In fact, a lot of times we won't be taking early prizes, we'll just be putting damage on the board to be able to take multi-prizes later with Mirage Barrage. So being able to Iono them down to a low hand size and keeping our hand size relatively large is great. So we can go Iono, and then we can Mirage Barrage, removing their engine, and then they're kind of stuck. Then we've got a Turo scenario for if our Greninja gets half hit, we can Turo and then go into another Froakie and then Shinobi Blade, because again, we only need 1 attachment to swing with this. We've got 1 boss because we're also playing 2 Counter Catcher, and since we have 3 Irida and 4 Arven, it's super easy to fund the Counter Catchers throughout the game. We have 4 Buddy-Buddy Poffin, and obviously we're going to be behind on prizes because we're going with a damage spread scenario here. We've got 4 Buddy-Buddy Poffin because we want to get down our basics as quickly as possible. We've got 3 Ultra Ball for being able to find our evolutions throughout the game, 2 Nest Ball for being able to find our Rotom, Ursaluna, Alakazam, and Mawile, 3 Rare Candy to be able to jump from Froakie into Greninja, although we can play the game a little bit slower because we don't necessarily need to swing with this early. We could trap something with Mawile while spreading damage with Froslass and setting up knockouts while keeping a 1-prize board state. We've got 2 Earthen Vessel because they're items searchable with Arven and Irida. I hate how anytime you hover over this, it pops in front of the screen, though. But since we have 7 outs to search for Earthen Vessel off of Supporter, 2 Earthen Vessel and 5 Waters feels good. We've got the 2 Counter Catcher, as mentioned before, a Lost Vacuum to remove tools. This is really good against Raging Bolt Ogerpon, because theoretically we can go Shinobi Blade, hit for 170, while spreading with Froslass, and then potentially be able to go Mirage Barrage into a Ogerpon that has had damage spread to it after moving damage from one of the Ogerpons to another one of them with Painful Spoons, and then Mirage Barrage for a 4-prize turn, and then finish the game with Ursaluna EX. We could also, if they bench Greninja, which most of the time they will, we can stall it with Tempting Trap, forcing them to use a switch card. which then we could use Super Rod to put back in the Mawile and then potentially trap it again. So we've got a lot of different options. Again, the matchup isn't great because they can just kind of knock out our Greninja out of nowhere, but having the Mawile to be able to trap things and spread damage in the process gives you those additional turns that you need to try and set up for those crazy plays in the late game. So obviously we have the Super Rod, we can put back any of our energy or Pokemon throughout the game, whichever ones we might need. We have the Unfair Stamp, this is our Ace Spec of choice. At first I was liking Prime Catcher, but as I played this more and more, I felt like the disruptive option to set our opponent back and make it where they're less likely to be able to play the game gives us more turns to spread with Freezing Shroud. So honestly, I really like Unfair Stamp here. And then we have one Technical Machine Devolution. This used to be 2 until we cut down to 1 Rescue Board instead of it. We have the Rescue Board as a pivot option, so we can go Arven for Rescue Board Buddy Poffin and then retreat into Cleffa. And then we have the Forest Seal Stone to be able to grab off Arven to use with Rotom to grab any piece that we need throughout the deck. 5 Water Energies and 2 DTE to be able to utilize that Mirage Barrage attack, which most of the time will be going Shinobi Blade, search for DTE if we don't expect them to be able to KO us, and then DTE Mirage Barrage. So this is the list. I really do like it right now. Honestly, you could potentially find some room to make like a 4/4 Froslass, maybe cut down on some of the extra stuff that I added in here because I think it's cool. But honestly, I think a 3/3 Froslass is fine, and the Ursaluna, Mawile, and Alakazam are really great inclusions to give you options against a bunch of different decks. I think this deck is super solid. It might not be the correct meta for it right now, just because of how popular things like Raging Bolt are right now, but I do think that this deck has potential in the long run, and as the meta develops, I'm sure it'll consolidate and have, like, a place in the meta. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you did. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any other lists you want me to cover. Unfortunately, I will not have a video next week. I will be at NAIC, so keep an eye out for how I do there. If you want to follow me on Twitter to see how I do post updates about any tournaments that I go to on Twitter, as well as just constant Pokemon content on there. So check the link in the description down below if you want to follow me on Twitter, if you're not already, because most people know me more from Twitter than from YouTube. But I hope you all have a great rest of your night, and I will catch you all later.